Everybody ready?
Just a moment, Gary. So.
Okay.
Okay, Gary, I think we're ready.
Okay. Call the Hutchinson City Council meeting to order for Tuesday, May 26, 2020. Approve the council agenda. Any agenda additions or corrections?
Mayor and council, I would just want a correction to the agenda. I'd ask that you remove item 7E. I know there were some questions raised, and I think Dan wants to just get some additional information before presenting that to the city council. So I'd ask you to remove item 7E.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the agenda. Dave?
Aye.
Steve? Aye. Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Invitation is from Reverend Freddie. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. From Maranatha House of Prayer, Freddie Magden. Let's pray. God, our Heavenly Father, today as we gather here with our leaders of our community, we thank you for your holy presence. Thank you for being with us as we were going through the threat of this pandemic, guiding our leaders and protecting our towns, cities, and states. We invoke your presence, O Lord, and guidance to be with all who have to decide what direction our churches, schools, and businesses have to choose. We ask for your mercy for our elderly and for our dear children, and for those who are jobless, for those who need food and shelter. God, we pray that you will comfort those who are in the hospital, that they may recover quickly. Blessed be with our president who makes choices and decisions that would be right in your eyes. Be with our governor and lead him to guide our state in the way it should go. I pray your blessings on our mayor and all the officials as they endeavor to do their utmost to improve our Hutchinson. Bless our pastors, doctors, nurses, teachers, students, police, and all other workforces who are working towards the betterment of Hutchinson. Be with our students who will be graduating this year. May their future be secure, O God, in your hands. Father God, I humbly ask that you keep our spirits holy, our souls happy, and our bodies healthy for your glory, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Recognitions of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the Camrath family for the wonderful statue that both Keith and Lisa commissioned and funded, and then their son John sculpted and added that at Veterans Memorial Park, Cloud County Veterans Memorial Park. And then the second one, just want to recognize Tom Wirt. He was the winner of the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council Prairie Star Award that's given for someone who has long provided quality work as well as strengthen the arts. And Tom has definitely done that in Southwest Minnesota as well as in Hutchinson. So I just wanted to congratulate him on that. That's it.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else? All right, moving on, public comment. Matt, do we have anybody that wants to address the council?
Mayor, I don't see anybody.
All right, approval of minutes. We have regular meeting minutes of May 10th, 2020.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Dave, second by Steve to approve the minutes of May 12th, 2020. Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
aye, motion passes. Consent agenda will be done by one motion unless somebody pulls something off for discussion. A is approval of renewal of Park Elementary lease agreement. B is approval of 2020 street maintenance overlays. C is approval of letter of support for the Dakota Rail Trail project. D is approval of issuing short-term gambling license to the Saturday Night Cruiser Club. F is consideration for approval of resolution number 15171, resolution adopting facts, finding of facts and reason for approval of site plan for counseling center located at 1285 Highway 7 West with favorable planning commission recommendation. And G is claims appropriation contract payments register A. Is there anything anybody wants pulled off?
This is Dave. Can I pull C and ask a question about that, please?
Sure can.
Yes, you can. Motion to approve the balance.
I'll make a motion to approve the balance.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Dave to approve the balance. Dave?
Question I have is, I couldn't find any.
Dave?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Okay, Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda passes. C, go ahead, Dave.
The only thing that I would like to know is this has been a suggested to the county several times for this consideration. What is the consideration of payment then? How is it going to be paid for?
Oh, that's part of the grant. So they did apply for a grant last year. That one did not get funded. So this, the purpose for the letter is just to keep it in mind that there's still interest out there, and this has been something that's been on our strategic plan. And as you noted, we've did several letters of support over the years. And so, like I said, there's an opportunity this year. There's a grant cycle that the grant is due July 31st. And, you know, the letter says if possible, and maybe that could be considered.
Is that grant going to cover the total cost?
No, it won't. The whole idea with this is that it would be phased, a couple different ones. The first phase was actually completed last year. That went from the Carver County line to County Road in Lester Prairie. So they've talked about different phasing opportunities, you know, with this, and they've had the county has had an engineering study done to look at costs and help them determine, you know, where it might make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dave, can you make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Chad, was that you that seconded it? No.
It was Steve.
That was
Steve.
Gary.
Okay, all right, sorry. All right, motion by Dave, second by Steve to approve. Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
aye, motion carries. All right, we have approval of consent agenda 2. I have a check there for my company, so I will be abstaining.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Chad, second by Dave to approve Register B, with me abstaining. Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
motion carries.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes, Steve.
can I go back to Dave's question about the grant and if people want to change anything?
No, go ahead.
Just when you asked about the paving, Dave, the whole grant, that's really up to the county what they want to put in for. And sometimes there's local matches. There isn't a match actually required for this, but obviously if there is a match, that makes your application look a little better. So I have no idea what the county would plan, but I just wanted to be upfront, you know, with that there might be a match that would go towards the project. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we do have a public hearing, but we'll kind of jump. Matt, do you want to go to unfinished business or new business?
Well, Mayor and Council, obviously, we've got 2 public hearings, both start at 6 o'clock, and it's 5:46. So we have a little bit of time. So whether or not you want to address, I guess, item 11 or 12, that's, you know, if you want to just simply go in order, that's, I guess, whatever the pleasure of the council is.
Well, why don't we do unfinished business, ordinance number 20-814, ordinance amending chapter 112 liquor regulations to allow hotels.
Mayor and Council, City Attorney Mark Sabor addressing you regarding this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you remember from the last couple of meetings, we had a request from Cobblestone Inn here in town to have our ordinance concerning liquor services in town amended to include the possibility for hotels to provide liquor. And we talked extensively last meeting about whether there should be a food requirement connected with their ability to serve alcohol. And so I had forwarded for your consideration as part of the packet some different possibilities that could be included in an amended ordinance to talk about food requirements, a certain percentage, and whether complimentary food should be included in that percentage, and auditing with the city finance director, things of that nature. And I believe also Council Member Cook had forwarded some information to the council regarding some suggestions he had concerning that point. And I guess I'd like to start off the discussion with asking the council if you've given any thought about what type of food requirement, if any, you'd have in connection with the provision of alcoholic beverages at hotels in town.
This is Dave. I haven't given a lot of thought to the food part of it. I have done some asking around to see how liquor and tobacco are handled by someone that's under the age of 21. And apparently anyone over or 18 and over can sell tobacco and or beer or wine to a consumer across the counter without any provocation there. But the thing of it that bothers me is motels and hotels are somewhat notorious. I shouldn't say, I don't mean that negatively, but of hiring people that are younger than 18 years old. That would that be is that a something we got to be concerned about? Is a illegal age person taking money for beer, wine?
Well, from my standpoint, Councilperson Sebesta, I don't really think that you have to be necessarily concerned with that. If the ordinance change was to be made and they obtained a license, I'm sure the Hutchinson Police Services would be conducting their compliance checks, just as they do with every other licensed premises in town, and try to verify compliance that way.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, why don't you go ahead and talk about what you put together?
Sure. Thanks, Gary. I just I appreciate, what Mark laid out, and I just the suggestion that I sent out just tried to mimic the language that we have for the restaurant ordinance now, and in that there is a requirement. I was suggesting 20% of the combined gross sales of alcohol and food combined. 20% of that would have to be from the serving of food. And then the rest of it, again, kind of mimics what's already in the restaurant language, that, at the request of the city administrator, the applicant, would have to have a financial statement. They have to show proof, to the council, about that 20% or not less than 20%, just like restaurants have to do. I thought about, the complimentary food and beverage piece of it, and just thought maybe we don't need to include that in the calculations, but to have that information provided to us just for our understanding, since this is a new thing for us, and we'd be able to, maybe there's an opportunity in the future to look at it after it's been in place a few years, and maybe some of the other restaurants or some of the other hotels want to have a license as well. So that's it. I don't know if anybody had any questions on that.
No. This is Mary. I thought it looked good. I was okay with that.
I think that, last time, I think, me and Chad and myself kind of agreed with the 20%. Chad, are you still comfortable with that?
I am comfortable with that.
Well, no, then Mark, you had some other updates, you know, that kind of came out of the last meeting as far as things being not in display during non-sales times, and Sunday sales was clarified a little bit, right?
Right, so I included in the proposed ordinance a requirement that if a license holder wasn't engaged in serving alcohol at that time of the day, that items that they might have displayed for sale would not be on display during the times that sales were not available. And then as Steve mentioned, tried to clarify the fact that a separate Sunday license is required through the city to be more consistent with what the state law calls out. And one thing that we also included for your consideration was the fact that temporary liquor licenses would be available to clubs and restaurants. But at least at this time, they would not be available for hotels. And I think that does it with the proposed changes to the alcohol ordinance.
So if I wanted to make a motion for my suggested language, how do I do that since, to say that? And then, and as well as your changes.
I think, Steve, what you would need is simply to adopt the ordinance, or first reading of the ordinance as presented, and then note that one section, because that was the only section in the ordinance where we had kind of questions on what it should read, and then just note what that one section should read within your motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed ordinance changes, but, and I'm sorry, I can't, again, looking back what section that is, but it's under the definition of hotel. There will be a new section that says, a hotel qualifying under this chapter shall submit proof to the city council that not less than 20% of the combined gross sales of alcohol and food sales of the establishment for which the on-sale license is to be used are from the serving of food. Upon the request of the city administrator, the applicant shall submit a financial statement signed by an independent accountant that indicates the total gross alcohol and total gross food sales of the hotel for the calendar year or fiscal year preceding the date of the renewal application. Complimentary food and beverages are not included in the gross sales calculation, but their fair market value shall be included in reports and financial statements provided to the city as required above. And just a note, you know, I think, right, Mark or Matt, we haven't required audited financial statements to this point. It just gives us the opportunity, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
I'll second that motion. Motion by Steve, second by myself. For ordinance number 20-814. Dave?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Mayor, just to add to it, obviously this is the first reading. of the ordinance, we do require 2 readings. The second reading will be scheduled for our June 9th meeting. This time it can be considered for approval. And I just know with representatives from Cobblestone, we can get you a copy of what this ordinance looks like at this point in case you had any additional comments on that.
Yeah, I know Deb is there. Does she want to say anything, Matt?
Not unless you have questions.
She says she doesn't have anything to share at this point, so.
All right. Thanks. Can we do 12 quick, Matt?
No, I don't think we'll have enough time. So between now
Okay.
and 6 o'clock. So if you want to
Okay.
do item number 13, so.
Okay, let's do 13 then. Issuing tobacco license to Diversified Management Group Incorporated.
Mayor and Council, this request, we've got a new purchase of, was it, help me, Melissa, the
Murphy Oil, Walmart.
Murphy, Walmart, and so they're looking to get a license to sell tobacco.
A motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to approve the tobacco license. Dave,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
aye, motion passes.
Gary, I would go back up to item number 9.
All right, have public hearing, proposed adoption of modifications to the development program for the development of District Number 4 and the proposed establishment of tax increment financing District Number 4-21 and the adoption of a tax increment financing plan therefore.
Miles, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Just real briefly, we've been talking with a company about doing a project in the industrial park. And this is going to take off here very shortly, but we're not quite ready yet. So we had scheduled the public hearing about a month ago. I believe the city council called for the public hearing. And then after that, they came back to me and said, well, can we hold off on this a little bit? So after talking with Mr. and Matt, what we thought would be the right way to go would be just to open the public hearing and then just do a continuance. And then we would come back and address this all next month. We would look at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 23rd of June. So I think the 2 actions we're looking for tonight would be just to open the public hearing and then do a continuance, make a motion to continue it until June 23rd.
All right, we'll open the public hearing then.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
No, we're not, hang on, we're not looking to close it. We're looking to continue it to June 23rd at 6 p.m.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second that.
What Chad said? Okay.
Yep.
All right, motion by Chad, second by Mary to continue the public hearing. Dave,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
aye. Passes. All right,
Thanks, Miles.
thanks,
Thank you.
Miles.
Have a good night.
Yep. All right, second public hearing, airport area utilities extension project, levy number 4, project number 20-04. We have 2 resolutions underneath there. have resolution number 15172, resolution ordering improvements and preparation of plans and specifications. And resolution number 15173, resolution adopting plans and specifications and ordering advertisements for bid. Good evening, Ken.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, like we've spoken about this project several times. At this point, we're just doing a public hearing for a formality to allow us to potentially fund the project with some bonding dollars. And that's a discussion that Andy and Matt and myself will have as we go out and get bids on this front, if that's necessary. So with that, I won't get into a whole lot of detail. The project estimate was provided at the last or a couple of meetings ago when we ordered this hearing. We're looking at a total project cost of just over $400,000. It's primarily, well, it's almost solely funded by water and wastewater funds. At this point, there will be a contribution that's proposed per an agreement that's in place with the Minnesota wing of the Civil Air Patrol. And with that, I did emailed council a drawing earlier today. I believe Matt can bring that up. So I just wanted to show, just to give you a little bit of an idea of the lay of the land. I won't get into all the line work on this drawing. It gets a little confusing with the property ownerships involved, the easements that are in place, the right of way that's in place, and then easements that we do have to secure from Mr. Kosak and then from McLeod County. But I'll start on the right-hand side of the page. Target, what's showing there is the very southwesterly corner of the Target store, obviously. The dark area immediately to the left of that corner of Target is one of the fair marketplace ponds, stormwater ponds. And then you go to the south of that, you'll see some blue line work. That is the proposed water main. And then that parallels the existing sanitary sewer trunk main that's in place immediately to the south of that. It's the thinner gray line work. And then when you get to the corner, kind of in the middle of the page, after you go to the west side of the ditch that's out there, which is basically where segment number 1 is labeled, we'll then turn the corner and head to the southwest towards Airport Road to make a crossing of that into the Civil Air Patrol training facility site that's proposed. So what we end up with is a fair amount of water main infrastructure, all the blue line work, and then all we're doing from a sanitary sewer standpoint is connecting into the existing trunk main and then extending that green line from the existing trunk main alignment in parallel with the water main across Airport Road. There are 3 borings that are involved. One to get under the ditch with the water main, and then down by Airport Road, we'll bore across both the water main and the sanitary sewer mains. With that, I don't know if council has any questions with respect to the scope of the project.
Kent, were you doing anything with the ditch?
No, yeah, that's a good question, Gary. I know we've spoken a little bit about that. We did do a hydraulics analysis. We had a consultant take a good look at that ditch. There have been conversations, over recent years with the county with respect to potentially filling that ditch. We did do an analysis. It can be filled and replaced with a pipe, albeit we don't intend to do that at this time. They are finalizing that study effort. One thing that will be necessary is additional ponding, maybe in a couple of areas to make the hydraulics work properly if that ditch is indeed filled. But like I mentioned, we're simply going to bore beneath the ditch bed The pipe will be about 6 feet beneath the bed of the bottom of the ditch per se.
Were you still gonna do some maintenance? I thought you said that something about that one time too. Maintenance
Yeah,
for the ditch.
had that conversation with the county staff and their fair board representatives. That still should be done. That's a conversation we probably need to reintroduce with them if we're not going to do the filling of the ditch at this point in time. And yeah, I don't see it being done really until potentially you go back to that drawing, the Jeffrey Kosak property immediately to the west of Target. If anything's ever done with that tract of land, that would potentially not necessitate, but there would be some benefits conceivably to that tract of land and possibly the county fairground if that ditch was then filled at that point. But as long as that remains a field and simply a pond over there, there's really no need to fill the ditch at this point in time.
All right, anything else for Kent?
I guess it's not, well, it's related to the project, but not the scope. Just where's the CAP at, on the project?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, Steve. I know John's had some conversations with them. I think the agreements falling into place, and we're going to bid the project. Bid opening is scheduled for June 24th. Prior to us opening the bids, we'll reconfirm with where they're at in their process. The last thing we want to do is get bids in hand and be under a certain prescribed time frame to award the project. So we'll then, in a week or two, just make sure everything's aligning from their site development standpoint. If we need to hold off on the bid opening, a few weeks, a month, maybe even a couple of months, we can always do an addendum and push that bid opening out.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, now open it up for public comment.
Mayor, council, I don't see anybody here looking to address the council during the public comment period.
Close the public hearing then. Motion.
I'll second it. Motion by Steve, second by myself to close the public hearing. Chad,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries. Motion to approve both resolutions.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second. Let Dave.
Motion by Chad, second by Dave to approve both resolutions. Dave?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, we'll go back up to item 12 under new business. SIT special assessment agreement.
Mayor and council, you may recall this was first brought in front of the council for consideration back in November. At that time, staff was given the directive to work with the SITs on looking at deferring that assessment to a later date. And we've been working on that. The agreement in front of you for tonight is for consideration. Has been worked on by staff with Mrs. Sitt's attorney, who are both in attendance tonight. And I'll hand it over to City Attorney Sabora, who will go through some of the details.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm sure you're all familiar with the background that led up to this agreement. And most of that material was included in the, as I said, I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the whole background on this project and the reason for this agreement. Quite a lot of information was included in the council packet for you to take a look at before the meeting tonight. But basically, the agreement that's being proposed for approval by the council would defer the assessments on the property owned by Ms. Sitz, and would defer any payment on those assessments for a period of 10 years unless the property or a portion of it was sold to some non-family member or entity. After that 10-year time period, the assessments would be activated and the remaining balance would be payable in 10 installments until they were paid off. I did get some feedback today from Councilmember Cook, and after speaking with him, the staff is proposing that some language be added to section 2.01 subdivision D that talks about exactly when the assessments are going to be activated and under certain circumstances that they would be activated. And it's proposed that some language be added that to make it more clear that if the property was conveyed or transferred to some third-party non-family person or entity, that all of the remaining assessments would be due and payable at that time. So staff would be recommending approval of the agreement with that additional language. I believe that Ms. Sitz and her attorney are agreeable to that language being added. So staff would be asking that you approve the agreement.
Can I just ask a question from the attorney that's present? And my question is, on the potential transfer distribution to the children, would that be done through a trust, or have you thought about that? Or there's actually a trust already in place?
Yes, there are currently two trusts in place. One is from Ms. Sitz's husband's estate, and then one is Ms. Sitz's revocable living trust. And so the idea is that right now they will continue to be held by those trusts as long as Hazel is alive. However, after her death, those would be distributed equally to her children. And the plan would be that it would continue in the family. And only if it was sold separate from that would any sort of assessment come due prior to 2030.
So potentially, the city would be trying to contact multiple people for shares of the assessment once they become due.
Correct, but I would assume that would be taken care of as part of its the city's typical assessment process.
Sure, with the county, so.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Steve, you want to make a motion to accept with the additional language?
Sure, I'll do that. I'll make a motion to approve this with the additional language that Mark talked about as far as when the assessments are due on a sale or transfer to a third party.
I'll second that.
Motion by Steve, second by Mary to approve the agreement. Dave?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, under new business, ordinance number 20-815, ordinance extending local state of emergency.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. as everyone's very well aware, we're still under our declared state of emergency, both in the state of Minnesota and the city of Hutchinson. Since the mayor's declaration back in March, the city council has extended the state of emergency in the city. Well, they've extended it once, they implemented it, and then they extended it once. And before you tonight is a proposal to extend it one more time. The proposal in front of you tonight is to make it, is to have it terminated at the same time as the governor's current state of emergency would be expiring, and that would be on June 13th. As I noted in the memo for the council packet, the main reason for the continuation of the state of emergency in the city is so that the city can remain eligible for any federal or state emergency funds that might be available to help the city recoup any expenses it has in fighting the pandemic or preparing for the pandemic. And of course, no one can foresee the future, but there always is a possibility that there might be an increase in the number of cases of the COVID-19 virus in the city. And should that happen, the city needs the ability and the flexibility to combat that increase in the virus in the city. So that's why staff is asking that the emergency declaration be extended till June 13th.
Mayor and council, I'll just add one other thing too, as we've seen in recent days with some of the changes that are taking place, keeping this in order does give staff some flexibility. And I'll specifically point to the bar and restaurant situation in regards to outdoor dining. And obviously, unless you disagreed with staff, it did allow me some flexibility to grant some temporary guidelines and potentially permits to where in the past they would technically need to get a franchise agreement. Well, that requires an ordinance, which requires a couple hearings in front of the city council. And so as long as we're still within the state of emergency, you know, Mark and I made a decision to hand those out administratively, noting that they're on a temporary basis. You know, we're using the same guidelines that we would with any other type of franchise agreement. We haven't had any requests yet, but if that does come in, that does give us the flexibility to where if you don't have the state of emergency, then we get back into, obviously the council could suspend some of those rules, but you would get into, if we're having to make some decisions on the fly, we kind of limit our ability to do that. So it's just another thing to take into consideration as well.
Make a motion to approve the extension.
I'll second it.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to extend the state of emergency. Chad?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Update on city services.
Mayor and council, following that extended local state of emergency, I thought it'd be prudent to at least update the council and the public on where the city stands in regards to some services that have somewhat changed a little bit over the last couple of weeks and couple of months. And so actually starting last week, the administrative side of the building opened back up to customer facing. As you probably saw, if you visited City Hall, if you're at City Hall, we did add some plexiglass to kind of protect our staff to the admin side of the building. The DMV also opened up on Wednesday to appointment only. I want to make sure I emphasize that too, because I know we've had a lot of questions. But just to kind of prepare for the workload, we're just asking that individuals who need to deal with the DMV to make an appointment prior to coming to City Center. I know there's a lot of questions about my tabs are expiring, but you may recall that with the governor's state of emergency, that actually the extension of deadline on a lot of those licenses, I think, are 2 months after the stay or the emergency declaration comes to conclusion. So that's just a reminder for those in the public. Creekside has gone back to their summer hours, which are extended timelines, especially even on Saturday for those who want to drop brush off. The campground is expected to open on June 1st. With services, we've got things in place to obviously take on what's needed with that. And that would include too, because I know we've had a couple questions that would include the dump station. I think it's important for people to remember that the dump station is a part of the campground. It's actually for the campground's purpose, even though it does get used outside of that, but that is set to open on June 1st as well. Obviously looking at some other park and rec programs as they become available. Still, hasn't been a whole lot more that has been expanded upon. And then, one thing I do want to point out to the council is, we've had a question out there regarding the Aquatic Center, and Dolph and I have spent a lot of time talking about that. We've talked about the liability of having a season. I'm just going to be honest with both the council and the public. I see it being very difficult for a season taking place this year, mainly due to the potential liability of the city. Right now there is nothing. Right now you can't have more than 10 in gathering. They had some conversations that might extend to 50 or 100 or maybe even up to 250 people, none of which would allow us to operate a pool in a smart or wise decision. And as that continues to be delayed, it becomes a burden for those that are looking for employment. Dolph and I are planning on making a decision by the end of this week, but I just want to be honest with everybody to say it's going to be very difficult for us to have a season. And as we've seen throughout the state, most of the aquatic centers are starting to close if they haven't announced that already. They will be. And so, Dolph is here if you have any questions for him and I, but we are planning on making a decision by the end of the week on it. And then the last, question I had for the council is future council meetings. Do you want us to continue to meet as we have been the last couple of weeks, or is there a desire to come back into the council chambers? And so I think I kind of touched on a little bit of everything regarding city services, but I guess I'm open for any questions you may have. And as I noted, Dolph's here too, if you have any questions regarding park and rec operations.
For people's perspective, like how many people does the pool hold when it's rocking and it's full?
800. About 800.
So more than 150? Yeah.
A lot more than 150.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to remember too is just the cost to operate that pool. We're obviously, it's a service that we love providing to the community, but we're also trying to be smart stewards of the taxpayers. And if you can only operate a pool at 10, 15, 20%, unfortunately, you have to run it like it's being operated at 100%. And so that's the difficult situation. And if, and on top of that, some of the guidelines that have come out from CDC, they've talked about the need to wipe everything down after every user. So that means every inner tube that's being used, we would have to wipe down. Every handrail that's being used, we're having to wipe down. And so you're almost looking at probably having to double your staff, of which we are, I want to say we struggle, but it's a tight ship to get what we need on a regular basis. And so all of that is playing into effect as we make this difficult decision. I said, unless something drastically changes this week, I don't see it being a viable option for us.
You mentioned too, Matt, or just alluded to that there could be liability issues as well, and the League of Minnesota Cities has raised that caution to cities, right?
Yep, if we can't meet the guidelines that are established, or if we choose to ignore those guidelines, we run into obviously issues and situations with not having insurance coverage. If the governor has not allowed gatherings more than a certain size, we choose to ignore that, we are essentially breaking state law, which then opens our liability up to a level that I don't want to expose any of our taxpayers or any of our staff as individuals to. And so that's obviously the challenge that we're faced with. Any other questions regarding city operations?
No, I don't think there's anything else.
Oh, I have that.
We will
I
move
think
on.
for meetings, like, did we want to talk about that? How we want to carry on?
Yeah, I think it's important, obviously. It's not for us.
I think until the governor opens things up a little bit more, I think we should just keep doing what we're doing. And when he opens things up a little bit, then we can follow suit.
I would agree with that. I think we're getting kind of comfortable with this too. I've heard some good comments about it. We should keep doing this all the time. So.
I agree. I think we should wait. When the governor says we can open it up, we open it up.
Well, I think we go long enough where we'll get real good at it, but it's better than the first couple times, I'll tell you that. But I think we'll keep going until the governor opens everything up.
And that's fine. Like I said, I just remember that's really in your guys' hands. So whenever there's a desire to change that, we'll continue to meet this way. Like I said, we're figuring things out from a staff's perspective. It's a little bit different, but I think we're all kind of getting used to it. And so, yeah, just keep that in mind. If there's a desire to change something, just make sure you let us know. So.
All right. We have minutes reports from committees, boards, or commissions. The Hutchinson Utility Commission minutes from February 26, 2020 and March 25th of 2020. We have the Public Arts Commission minutes from March 11th, 2020 and April 16th of 2020. We have the Hutchinson Housing Redevelopment Authority Board minutes from April 21st, 2020, and the Planning Commission minutes from April 21st, 2020, the City of Hutchinson Financial Report and investment reports for April 2020. Matt, who do we have in the audience?
Oh, we've got Dolph, Kent, and Chief Gifferson, and Mark.
Well,
although Mark talked a lot today, so you may not be willing to talk anymore. And Marv too, but.
Well, Matt, if you'd be kind enough, ask them if anybody has any comments for us.
Kent does, so.
All righty, sounds good.
Quickly, a couple project updates. 15 and Main Street out here, things are going well. So nothing really new to report there. Washington Avenue, the crossing of Highway 15 at Washington Avenue has been paved. They'll wait for that concrete to set up and do a brake test, and then they can move on to closing down the intersection of 2nd Avenue. I would imagine that's going to be probably a week out, give or take. We'll see what the concrete testing does. Other than that, yeah, no, pipe work, installation work's been going well. Traffic in general, obviously, with the pandemic going on, is limited the downtown traffic, the business traffic, and just traffic in general. So nothing to report on that end, unless anybody has any specific questions on that front.
Kent, this is Dave.
Yep.
I don't have any questions, but they already closed down 2nd Avenue, so they put the barricades up about 4 o'clock.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was out there at 4:30. No, I was in here about 3:30. But anyways, yeah.
They don't let Kent out very much.
What was going on there, Dave? What you saw is they had to do some sanitary sewer bypass pumping they had to arrange some additional pumping. The flows are actually up right now. It's probably due to that 3 inches of rain about a week ago. So yeah, they're struggling to keep up with some of the sewer bypass pumping. So yeah, they might have had some trades around the manhole just to get that situated.
That could be. Thank you.
Yep. Century Avenue, that water main reconfiguration work went very well. Administered and completed by Jewel Contracting. So I want to just say thanks on that front. Yeah, it went very well. So that's all situated. All the water hydrants are now in service. The redundant water main service to the hospital and clinic is now in place. So thanks to Jewel and everybody involved in that. VFW Alley, we're still working with the contractor to get a schedule on that. Hopefully that's coming sooner than later. Northeast Ring Road on the county's front with respect to that study. They are taking a good look at the alignments, and we will be meeting, or I will be meeting with the county and consultant staff next week. And then lastly, on the Lakes and River Basin bonding bill, I don't know if maybe Steve wants to touch on that, and I can maybe add something, but I'll let Steve maybe touch on that to begin with.
All right, thanks, Kent. I was gonna planned on saying something, but I did get a call from Representative Erdahl last night saying that he was going to be in a meeting today, to talk about the House bonding bill. Our project was not originally in, the proposed or initially proposed one in either the Senate or the House, but he said it's really all being looked at again now. So there's still an opportunity that we might get funding for it. So, and just as a reminder, we were asking for $4.5 million, and that would do a variety of different things from stream restoration, shoreland stabilization. But the biggest part of that would be the construction of what's called a forebay. It's kind of a settling basin structure at the inlet to Otter Lake, and that would capture some of the majority of the sediment is the idea, and that be able to be cleaned out periodically through that and help improve the water quality. So, I don't know, anything else, Kent?
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. I think, you were initiating or the dialogue in some of the emails in the last week or so. Yeah, if we are, it's good this is coming back up. Like Steve said, that we weren't included in the initial drafts of the bills, but maybe there's still some hope here. But if we are unsuccessful, I think what staff has to do is we have to get together with the consultant and other agencies that are potentially involved in other funding opportunities and figure out what we need to do for more detailed preliminary design effort. So yeah, just want to give council a heads up on that, so if this effort goes to the wayside, I think then we need to sharpen our pencils a little bit and then start to zero in on other funding sources and really put the wheels in motion for the next bonding bill, approach. With that, that's all I have.
Thanks, Kent. If Chief Gifferson's there, I'd like to ask, I got a couple of questions.
Well, he was just leaving, and so I pulled him back in.
He wasn't quick enough.
I guess not.
How is the detours going, Chief?
Really well, actually. We still get some detoured or traffic that should be detoured that's not coming on Franklin, but it's slowed down considerably. It certainly helps opening Franklin up. And so we're not so concerned about traffic going through Shopko lot any longer because they actually have a legal way to make their way through there now. So it's going well.
Okay, second question, I had a resident ask me about the shooting range. That's been utilized quite a bit lately, as I've been hearing, so, I mean, couple times a week that you have people out there, qualifying?
I think that would be a bit excessive. It's not a couple times a week. However, I would remind the citizens and the council as well that is a regional training facility. It's not just for Hutchinson Police Department. So when those grant dollars were acquired some time ago, they were acquired as a regional training facility. So part of that is that we do allow other agencies other than Hutchinson PD to be out there training. Both state and federal agencies have been out there in the past.
So Tom, when you say regional, how big an area is that?
Well, potentially it could be the state of Minnesota, but the majority of the people that are utilizing it or agencies that are using it now are obviously Hutchinson PD, some with the sheriff's office, but then also West Metro agencies that have been using it.
All right, thank you. That should answer their question to me. Thank you.
Well, let's hope so.
All right.
I'd be more than happy to get more for you though. If you need to. Before I sit down, does anybody else have any questions though?
No, we're gonna let you sit down first before.
All right. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to talk, Matt?
I was wondering about, since Marv's there, maybe an update on the rec center?
So glad I came. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the construction on the rec center roof and siding project is proceeding. Not quite as fast as we'd like, but I met with the general contractor today and discussed the schedule. The schedule is still intact. They're going to start work on the exterior walls later this week. A lot of the work so far has been welding inside to reinforce the rafters and the columns. So once that's done, then they can start on the exterior, including the roof. So it appears that the sidewalls will go first, and then after that, they'll go on to installing the roof panels. So that's how the rec center project's going. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. Yeah, since you were there, so I.
Alrighty, Steve, why don't we start with you tonight then?
Steve, your mic is muted.
Thank you. I'd mentioned thanks to the Camraths, for the statue in the County Veterans Memorial Park, but just wanted to recognize staff, for the beautiful work they did in the pathway for that. And Dolph apparently was there and just passed that on as well. Just as a reminder, the Public Arts Commission helped contribute to that. We shared that with the Parks Department. And then the only other thing I had was, with the whole coronavirus, events are still canceling around the state, and we still had some approvals for the water carnival, and there's making some adjustments in their plans, but I don't know if we need to do anything officially with that, or Matt, I know there's still a little time. We have another meeting, but if there's been some communications with the water carnival folks and need to clarify what's, as far as our approvals, what's has to be re-looked at or changed possibly.
I think canceled every one of their, and I got Chief Kipperson here so he can fill us in if I missed anything. I think they've canceled every single one of their approvals that we authorized except for the fireworks. And I guess that's still probably the only thing that's still up in the air, if you want to say.
Yeah, a little bit more.
Good pun, huh? So,
Yeah. So is there any thought, with the social distancing things, I guess, just some of the examples that have been happening over the weekend, as much as we'd hope, the public would abide by some of that, it hasn't been real successful yet.
yeah, I mean, I guess, some of this is, where I'll be honest, we're kind of waiting to see what type of, regulations they put out right now. Community festivals aren't allowed, although they allow drive-in services. And so I think that's the tough thing that we're faced with is, if the guidelines come in that, you can watch the fireworks as long as you stay in your private property or in your vehicle, are we comfortable with that as a council? And I guess if we're not, then we probably need to revoke that license to display fireworks.
I think it's fun to tell people to stay in their car, but they won't. People will bike down there and they'll walk down there, and I mean, it'll attract people to have private gatherings. And not that I want to be, dictating what people do, but it's going to be easier said than done just to tell people to social distance an event like that usually attracts hundreds, if not thousands of people to that park.
Yeah. And just for the council's knowledge, we obviously have one more meeting prior to that. And so I think we can wait and see what happens here between now and our June 9th council meeting, but that would be something for you guys to consider.
Okay, thanks.
Is that all, Steve?
Sorry, yes, thank you.
All right. Dave, you have anything?
No, basically not. Just thanks to everybody for all the information this evening that was disseminated, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, Chad?
I didn't have much. I did go through the DMV's appointment system, and it was lovely. I wouldn't mind if they did that all the time because it wasn't obnoxious in there. Nobody was stressed out. There wasn't a rush to run through there. Staff seemed to enjoy it too because they didn't have people stacked up and breathing down their neck all day. So it was really nice and a smooth process.
I appreciate hearing that. I think, the one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of people, and maybe we have to do a little bit better job of trying to get the word out. A lot of people aren't calling in advance, and so they're showing up, wanting to get in. There's not an appointment. They end up coming over to the other side, asking a bunch of questions, and so that's one of the things that we have to try to work through to improve. I know in speaking with Mary, what she told me anyways is that apparently Glencoe is looking at 2.5 hour long lines. And so, I mean, I think there's some advantage to that appointment, but I know, and trust me, I think we understand the frustration. A lot of this is frustrating, but we're going to do our kind of best mix of protecting our staff and making sure we can still provide those services all that time.
No, I thought it was great. The people were handling it well. It was an easy process to go online and make the appointment. So I think we just have to let people figure it out, because otherwise I don't think it's fair to staff over there to have people breathing down their neck and out the door for 3 hours. It wouldn't be fun.
Sure. I appreciate that feedback.
That's all I had.
Matt, this is Steve. Are they still providing the Dropbox so you can do it through mail? Because I've had people comment about that, how prompt, that was taken care of, and obviously pretty easy.
Yep, that's still an option, or telling people if they can do that, to do that. That's a preferred option. So yes, that's still an option for the public.
Yeah, that's the way I got my tabs. I just dropped it in the mail and came in a couple days. It worked slick. Anything else, Chad? All right, Mary?
Mary, you didn't hit you're still on mute.
Mary, you muted.
Okay, am I on now? Okay, I just wanted to thank all our past and present veterans. It was Memorial Day, and because of them, we enjoy all these freedoms that we have. Right now, I know some people think we don't have a lot of freedom right now, but it is for the good of all mankind, just not us. So thank you to all our veterans. I saw a lot of people at Memorial Park on the day. You know, it was quite nice. We even enjoyed a social distancing picnic down there. So it was very nice. So thank you to all our veterans. And that's it. Be safe.
Thanks, Mary. Matt?
Just a couple things, just a reminder, mainly to the public, but council filing did open last Tuesday. We've had 3 individuals file to date, and it will close next Tuesday at 5 p.m. So just a reminder, if you do have interest in running for office, you have a week to file. And as I did share earlier, we did set out some guidelines to restaurants and bars for outdoor dining and service. I would just encourage, if you've got any questions, just feel free to give me a call. We've had 2 establishments inquire about the process. They've submitted the plans. Basically, it's a 5-minute process to get it approved. We haven't had anybody request anything yet on public property, which would probably be just a little bit longer, but we try to make it as smooth and as easy as possible for our restaurants and bars to make that available to them. And so, like I said, we've had 2 already apply and had that process go through. And then the last thing I did include with you guys, just some information. I know we've had a lot of questions regarding, being a business-friendly community and some desires for the council to pass resolutions. I've passed some information on to you just about some liability concerns that you would need to be aware of. Doesn't mean we still can't provide support of our local businesses or even support of resolutions, but I think it's just something to be mindful of as we've seen some communities that have gone that route, just the liability that's posed both as the city, but also as you as individuals. I think it's important for you to be aware of that as well. Other than that, I don't have anything else for the council tonight.
All right, thanks, Matt. I really don't have anything else, but be safe, be patient. Hopefully we'll all get through this together. So we're in it for the long haul, I guess, like Mary said. So, have a good evening. Adjournment's in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by everyone. Dave.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Chad.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Aye. Good evening.